Thanks to Aquasana for sponsoring this video. It's a weeknight, and so I want to share with you what I cook at home when I feel like eating out. I feel like every single week, whether it's the beginning of the week, the end of the week, anywhere in between kind of too, actually, I feel like we all have those days where we feel like eating out and we just don't want to cook. And sometimes it's because we're so busy and we just want something really easy and we don't want to have to worry about it, which I completely get. Or sometimes it's just a lot and you're not sure what to make and you're kind of craving something good out to eat, but you know it's not going to be as healthy as cooking homemade food. So today I want to show you what I like to cook as a mom, as a holistic nutritionist. These are meals I like to cook at home that satisfy those eating out cravings and kind of just like those different flavors you get when you're eating out. Italian, Asian, Mexican, there's so many different flavors that I love to get out, but I love to bring them into my home. I can use the ingredients I love and I know I'm gonna feel so much better. The key is to make it simple and to make it a little bit healthier, but still have all those really good flavors. So I'm gonna take you along with me for a couple weeknight dinners that are so good. It's what I love to eat instead of eating out, and I feel so much better, and they are so much more delicious than what I can get out anyway. I think that eating out actually becomes a lot harder when you're health conscious, because then you're kind of thinking about those seed oils in the back of your mind, or you're like, is that really chicken? Because I'm so picky about the products I bring into my home and sourcing good quality ingredients that once you start eating those things out, it almost makes you want to start learning how to cook more and be in your kitchen more, because you start to recognize those ingredients and you start to see that you can make the flavors even better and textures are better. Vegetables taste good. Lettuce isn't funky. There's so many reasons to cook at home, but you have to find the meals that you can go to that you know are going to be delicious. I kind of like to find dupes for eating out. Nearly every week I crave some sort of Asian inspired takeout dish, and this week I wanted to experiment just a little bit with using pad thai noodles because I love those. They're gluten free and they cook up really quickly and they're just so delicious. So today I'm actually going to prep some veggies and do that on a sheet pan in the oven, and then on the stove I'm going to get going some meat and noodles. So I'm going to make a Mongolian-style or inspired ground beef and pad thai rice noodle dish. This turned out absolutely amazing. It was delicious. My kids loved it too, which is always a bonus. So since I don't want to do just pasta and meat, I want to have some veggies. I'm doing these on the side. So I have a bell pepper and some broccoli. I'm just cutting those up into pieces that are kind of the same size. So I break down the broccoli florets into different bite-sized pieces and then cut the red bell pepper into about 1-inch chunks, maybe a little bit smaller. Just drizzle those with avocado oil and put those in the oven at 425 and just let those roast and get tender. You really don't need to cook it for more than 10 or 12 minutes. And while that happens, I'll get going on the stovetop things. So now I've got a skillet with 1 pound of grass-fed ground beef. That's preferred, but if you don't have that, you could also use ground chicken or even ground turkey. And I added a bunch of fresh garlic to that, and I'm just going to saute it down till it's nice and brown and tender. And in the meantime, I have a stock pot full of boiling water, and I'm just popping in those rice noodles. Now, you really only need one of these, but I like to have extra rice noodles on the side because I have some kids that enjoy those too, just by themselves. So I'm making extra so I have enough to go around. And you know I love a good Asian-inspired takeout sauce, and I use the same ingredients all the time, but it makes it really easy because you can fill your pantry and fridge with these things and actually use them. So I'm using some beef broth to start as the base of our sauce, and then I'm adding coconut aminos to that and a little bit of coconut sugar. This just helps to sweeten it up and kind of thicken it and make sure it coats it. Usually in these types of dishes, they have sweeter sauces that have a little bit of sugar in there, so I try to use a healthier source and use coconut sugar or honey. And I'm just adding that in. I'm going to do some fresh grated ginger. I love ginger. There are so many health benefits to it. So I keep this in my fridge, or sometimes I'll just put it in the freezer too. And you can peel that with a spoon and just grate that into so many different sauces and dressings. And it's so beneficial. It's great for your gut too. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of grated ginger. And that's it. That's it for the sauce. It's so easy and quick. You can throw this together and you barely have to get the measurements right. You can kind of just wing it and it turns out really good every time. But then to thicken the sauce, because we want to make sure that it really coats those rice noodles, I'm using a little bit of beef broth or water, and then I'm going to make a slurry with a little bit of cornstarch. And I find organic cornstarch at Thrive Market, but if you can't find that, you could either just use regular cornstarch or even arrowroot powder. But the arrowroot powder does give it a little bit of a different texture. I prefer the organic cornstarch. So I'm going to mix those together, and then I'll pour in that sauce over the ground beef and let it just simmer for 2 to 3 minutes or so until it starts to kind of thicken up and bubble. And that is when you'll pour in that slurry that you've mixed together with a fork and gotten nice and smooth. You don't want any chunks of the cornstarch, and then we'll add that into that simmering sauce and it will immediately thicken. So you can cut the heat off, stir it up real well, and pull off the burner, and then we'll get those noodles in there and coat it in that delicious Mongolian-style beefy sauce. If your sauce starts to thicken up a little too much, you can add a splash of beef broth to it, and then you're gonna put in all those noodles and use some tongs. That's my favorite thing to use. And just coat those rice noodles all in the sauce. You also could use brown rice noodles. They make those in pad thai, and there's a thinner version too. I can't remember the name, but there's definitely different versions of rice noodles you can use. And if you don't have those, or if you don't enjoy them, you could substitute that with just regular spaghetti or linguine. You could also use a gluten-free version of those if you want to. Anything, and kind of coat it in that sauce, and you have that delicious beef. And then I pull those veggies out of the oven and I top it with a side of veggies, and that gives you a lot more fiber versus just the rice noodles and the beef. You definitely want to make sure you have some veggies to balance everything out and just make a really nice balanced plate. I love topping bowls like this with a little bit of scallions, so I'll just take my scissors and cut up a few of those, or you could sprinkle sesame seeds, a little bit of sriracha. There's so many different ways you can kind of top off bowls like this, but let me tell you, this is a family favorite. Those noodles are so fantastic in that sauce, and you have plenty of beef in there to make it really filling, and it's a delicious meal. This is definitely one of those meals that I need to remember to make during garden season. Whenever I have peppers coming in or any sort of broccolini or anything like that, you can put so many different veggies in this. Whenever I'm using beef broth and I don't use the whole thing, I make sure to put that extra broth in little silicone cubes and freeze that for later so that there's no broth being wasted. That always sounds good to me, but I never really get out to eat is chicken parmesan, because I love that I can get it either with or without pasta, and then it's just mostly the meat, but I don't like the breading on it. And normally whenever you get that out to eat, they always use some sort of chicken patty, so it's not really chicken breast. I'm not really sure what it is, but the texture just kind of puts me off, but I crave it all the time. It sounds so good. So today I'm going to show you my version, and I'm not going to make pasta to go with it tonight. I don't know what I'm going to put on the side yet. I'm thinking I'll probably just do a salad to have meat and salad. I love really simple dinners, so I'm probably gonna do that, but I wanna show you kind of the healthier, lighter version that I do. And it's so quick because you're not having to make pasta on the side too. You can just kind of focus on the protein here, and it's so flavorful, and you have all that protein, and then we're gonna add some mozzarella, so it's gonna be really filling even without the pasta. A super delicious, better than restaurant usually style of chicken parmesan, and it's healthier for you too, so it's a win-win. One of the things I love about eating at home is always having my bottle or glass of fresh filtered water. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Aquasana, which is my water filtration system. They use best-in-class water filtering technology. So it actually provides the maximum contaminant reduction while leaving beneficial minerals that I love to keep in my diet, things like potassium, magnesium, and calcium in our water. So our family uses the Aquasana's clean water machine. It's not like a traditional gravity-fed filter that takes a while to drip through. You just fill the tank and then you push the button and you get the cleanest healthy water in 8 seconds, which is 5 times faster than the leading water filter, and it removes 15 times the contaminants. They created their products with the environment in mind, so all of Aquasana's filter components are engineered for minimal waste, and the filter cartridges made of recyclable products and compostable materials. And I love how long the filters last because that means fewer replacements you have to remember. One single Aquasana filter is the equivalent of 2,200 single-use plastic water bottles, and with so many environmental toxins on the rise and different spills, having healthier water is so important to your well-being and just your overall healthy lifestyle. One taste from the clean water machine versus a plastic bottle and you'll see just how much microplastics have leached into those bottles. The Aquasana doesn't have that bitterness. If you're ready to start tackling single-use plastic water bottles and start refilling your own with the cleanest, healthiest water, you can scan my QR code here on screen or click my link in the description, and it's going to give you 55% off all Aquasana's water systems that are $49 and up, plus give you free shipping. So if you guys want to check it out too, I'll leave all the info down below, and thanks again to Aquasana for sponsoring today's video. For this recipe, one of the keys is using thin sliced chicken breast. So if you have normal chicken breast, then just go ahead and you can slice it this way. You can put like a piece of parchment paper on top of the chicken breast and then get a knife, a little paring knife or just a big knife, and just run it down the middle as best you can and split that chicken breast into 2 pieces. And I love this because not only does it make it easier to fry up in a pan or in a skillet, but it also makes your meat stretch a little bit further, because if you have 2 chicken breasts, you can kind of multiply that into 4. And because we have other stuff going on the side of it, it's going to be filling anyway. I'm also going to use a little bit of marinara sauce, and this is one of my favorites. And the reason I like it is, one, it's organic and it's just a classic marinara sauce, but it has no sugar added and really clean ingredients. It's just organic tomato puree, tomato juice, and then salt and seasonings basically. So either I will do this if I have it in my pantry, and if I won't, then I'll use a can of either just crushed tomatoes or even whole tomatoes works. And you can break those up with a spoon or do it really the Italian style way, at least I think, and use your fingers and break apart the whole tomato pieces into really rustic chunks. I love that too. So if you have time, definitely do that. Throw in a little bit of fresh basil if you have it, but if not, then just go for a nice jarred pasta sauce and it's gonna be really good. So here's what you're gonna need. I'm using about 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast, and you wanna either use the thin sliced or slice them yourself, like I said, and then you want really finely grated Parmesan cheese, because that is what I'm gonna use to make kind of like the breadcrumb topping for this. Instead of coating it in traditional flour and breadcrumbs, I'm using Parmesan cheese as the coating for this. So I'm seasoning it just like you would normal breadcrumbs or flour, and I'm doing about a teaspoon of paprika and then some garlic powder and onion powder and then salt and pepper, and we'll mix that all together, and that will be our little coating for the chicken. And I'm actually basing this on a recipe I already have on my website, which is my skillet Parmesan crusted chicken. So I'm going to link that recipe, but just know that I'm varying it a little bit by skipping the einkorn flour or any sort of flour in it and just using Parmesan. And honestly, the flavor is stronger because you have just the Parmesan, so that Parmesan flavor really comes through. Now we need something to make this kind of Parmesan mixture stick to the chicken. So I'm just doing a simple egg wash, and all I do is take a couple eggs and I'll beat those up and then add a little bit of water, or you could even add a little splash of milk and just thin it out a little bit, because we just want enough to kind of coat the chicken and dredge it, and then enough to kind of make that Parmesan stick to it. So you don't have to go overboard, just a nice little coating of the egg wash and then straight into the Parmesan mixture. And I like to use a fork for this and just kind of throw it over the top and then turn the chicken over on the other side and just make sure every little edge is coated. And then I'll put that on a baking sheet and set that aside until I'm ready to go in the skillet. So these are going to start in the skillet, but then we're going to finish them off in the oven so that they're really easy to do and cook through all the way. You don't have to worry about it. So once you've coated your chicken and that is ready to go, I'm going to preheat a large skillet for this. So I'm using a 12-inch cast iron, and I have it over medium, just a little bit higher than medium. And I'm adding a bunch of avocado oil. We want to make sure that the bottom of our skillet is fully coated so you can get a nice brown crust on this. And once that skillet is nice and hot and that oil has heated up, then I'm placing my chicken in the skillet. And you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of room. You don't want it crowded because you want to make sure everything gets that nice crispy crust. But don't worry about cooking it through all the way, because after we turn it over and both sides are browned, we'll put that on a parchment lined baking sheet and put it in the oven at about 375 just until it's fully cooked. This recipe alone is so delicious, and you can actually take this and cut it up and put it on salads. I love it with something like a Caesar salad. It is so good with the Parmesan, but this is an amazing way to repurpose it. So now, before I put it into the oven, I'm taking just a spoon and I'm gonna put a small amount of sauce on it. I like to put just enough so that it stays nice and moist on top, but then I can always serve a little bit of extra marinara sauce on the side. But you wanna make sure that that chicken kind of holds up with its crispiness so you get a good texture. So I'm putting a little bit of sauce on here, maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons worth, depending on how big your chicken is. And then I have a ball of whole milk mozzarella that I've sliced up, and I'm just gonna put that over the top. But if you can't find whole milk mozzarella like this, then you could use shredded mozzarella just from a block. That will work really well too. Then into the oven, and I'm gonna do this at a higher temperature today because I wanna make sure that cheese gets nice and bubbly. So you could either just do it at 375, or you could do it at a higher temp and then you could broil it at the end, which is typically what I do. I'll just broil it for 5 minutes or so at the end to make sure that cheese is nice and bubbly. Now, to go on the side of this dinner tonight, I wanted to keep it really simple. So I'm gonna make a kind of like a chopped kale Caesar salad, but of course I'm making my homemade Caesar salad dressing. And I do have this on my website. It's one of my favorite Caesar dressing recipes. It's so good. And you don't have to use anchovies in it, and it tastes pretty much just the same. So even when I do have anchovy paste, I don't really put it in because to me it doesn't make that much of a difference. It's more about the Parmesan and the lemon and garlic. So all I do is about a cup of mayo, about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and then I'll do some either stone ground mustard, Dijon mustard, or even spicy mustard if that's what I have in the fridge. And then just a little bit of Worcestershire, lots and lots of garlic, and then some fresh grated Parmesan cheese. And then you just do salt and pepper to taste, and it makes the most incredible Caesar salad dressing full of clean ingredients. So you can't get that anywhere out to eat, at least not where I live. And I'm gonna put that with that delicious chicken Parmesan, and it's the perfect pairing. Now to finish off the chicken Parmesan, all I'm doing is sprinkling over a little bit of dried parsley. That's totally optional, but I love the color combo. It is so gorgeous. Then I'm just taking some dinosaur kale that I had in the fridge left over from making kale and quinoa salad. So I'm de-stimming that, and what I'm gonna do is slice that up really finely, but then I'm gonna combine that with a garden salad mix because that is what my family loves. They love just very plain lettuce, but I love the stuff that's a little more green, has more nutrients. So what I'm gonna do is combine those. I love using kitchen scissors for this because you're able to get a finer texture, and especially when you have kids in the house, it's so much easier to eat. So I love it when my kids can just take a big old spoon and eat their salad with a spoon. It makes it easier. So I'm taking my kale and I'm gonna put that in there with that regular just garden salad mix, and then use my scissors to cut it up. And this just makes it so easy to bite. Then I'll dress it with that Caesar salad dressing. And what's so funny is my 8-year-old son actually came back for seconds this night and was like, "Mom, this salad was so good." And I really didn't expect that from my 8-year-old son, to love my kale salad. That's how good this is. I guess good dressing, right? Well, I hope you got some inspiration for what you can cook at home when you feel like eating out. Don't feel like you always have to eat out for something yummy. You can make delicious things at home, and I hope these inspire you to do that this week. If you're looking for the recipes, I will leave them down below in the description box. Or if you're looking for more inspiration, you can head to healthyelizabeth.com or check out the other videos here on my channel. Thanks so much for joining me in the kitchen.